output, understand how oxygen content can be altered in anemia, and how to calculate, again, oxygen delivery specifically to the tissues, and again, the factors that will affect oxygen delivery to the tissues. So again, what we're going to get at then here is understanding what is our total oxygen content. This becomes important, and so we've seen this graph before, where the oxygen content shown here on the right-hand side is in mLs of oxygen per deciliter of blood. And as I mentioned previously, it is entirely dependent upon the PaO2. And normally our alveolar and arterial is about 100 millimeters of mercury. So if we come up this line, we see that our total content is about 20 mLs of oxygen per deciliter of blood. Again, that is a normal physiological value. And what we can see from that is the hemoglobin accounts for about 19.7% of that. The dissolved oxygen accounts for about 0.3% of that. And again, at this point where we're at about 20, we come over and we see our hemoglobin saturation is about 98%. So this point here is, again, is a normal physiological point coordinating these three variables: PaO2, oxygen content, and hemoglobin saturation inputs at this point. And so the take home from this is the total oxygen content is really the sum of the dissolved as well as the oxyhemoglobin. So what we need to be able to do then is kind of work with this, understand this principle, and there's specifically an equation that allows us to calculate the overall content. So the oxygen content of our arterial blood, as we just said, is the hemoglobin plus dissolved, and so that's what we see here. And now we have to go back through and start putting in our specific numbers. And what we talked about previously was we know the normal hemoglobin concentration is 15. The carrying capacity is 1.34 mLs of oxygen per gram of hemoglobin, and the normal saturation is 98%. So when we do these numbers, it gives rise to 19.69, or if we want, we can round it up to 19.7 mLs of oxygen. And then the dissolved portion, as we said previously, the 0.0031 is the solubility of oxygen in a liquid such as plasma, times the PaO2, whatever the pressure is. And so again, under normal physiological conditions, arterial PaO2 should be about 100. And when you do this math, you get 0.31. So overall, 19.7 plus 0.3 gives rise to a oxygen content of 20 mLs of oxygen per deciliter of blood. And again, so these are the actual numbers in terms of, I mentioned in the previous slide, again, it's 19.7 plus 0.3. But again, this is how we actually derive these specific numbers of 19.7 and 0.3. And what becomes important in this aspect is understanding. So previously, this is our oxyhemoglobin curve. We talked about how on these curves we can have rightward shifts and how the curve can shift to the left. So what we're going to talk about now is how the content is going to change largely with the hemoglobin concentration. And what we end up seeing is really kind of is an upward shift of the curve, or in some cases we're going to see a downward shift. And overall, what that will affect is going to be the content. And there's going to be a couple things about this that we kind of need to understand. And so again, just to mainly orientate ourselves here, we just want to follow a normal curve, and this is saying normal hemoglobin concentration of 15. And so again, this is the oxyhemoglobin curve. Here is the point where the PaO2 is 100 millimeters of mercury. So if we come up to where we see where we hit the curve is going to be about here. We can see that on this point, so this scale is just the opposite. The oxygen content is on the left-hand side. So again, almost about 20 mLs of oxygen per deciliter of blood. And we can see over here for our saturation, it's almost about 100%, again, 98%. And the important thing is the percent saturation of oxyhemoglobin. There's three different scales: this one for anemia, this one for normal, and this one for polycythemia. So it's, and this indicating, again, at a normal PaO2 of 100, almost about 20 mLs of oxygen per deciliter. We're close to being fully saturated, about 98% saturation. And again, we went through the calculation of understanding that this will give rise to an overall content on the oxyhemoglobin to about 19.7 mLs of oxygen per deciliter of blood. So what can happen, though, is the content of oxygen can change, and it can change in a few different ways. And so one of the ones we're going to talk about is changing the hemoglobin concentration. So we'll actually start out with anemia, the lower one here. So overall, we know it's our capacity, which is the 1.34 mLs. But in this case, the concentration, we're going to take it from 15 and we're going to drop it down to 10. And this patient will stay still at 98% saturated. So when we calculate out these numbers, essentially it's going to be a overall total content of 13.4 4 mLs of oxygen per deciliter of blood. And so we can see that here if we come back to the curve again at a PaO2 of 100 come up. Again, we're right about at 13. So what's happened then effectively is the content is being lowered overall because there's less hemoglobin. And so again, this becomes problematic. We talked about that really when your content hits about 18 mLs of oxygen per deciliter of blood, that is very, very low. Certainly some type of intervention is going to be required. It's again a point that we need to certainly correct it from 18. So obviously this is very, very low. And so the important aspect about this again is really what's happened is it's the ability of hemoglobin, again, to carry oxygen. We just simply have fewer hemoglobin, a lower concentration of hemoglobin. But the interesting thing about anemia, if you look over here, the saturation is pretty close to 100%. And again, what this means then is that this person, again, they don't have any type of compliance issue. They don't have an airway resistance. That they're able to get oxygen, and they get the alveolar PaO2 up to 100. They can get the arterial up to 100. And that hemoglobin that they can nearly saturate with oxygen, it's nearly saturated. And so the problem with them is it's really their concentration. And classically, what the textbooks describe this as is they use a freight train or a railroad boxcar model. And so under normal conditions, what they say for a normal person is we have 15 railroad freight cars, and each railroad freight car can be loaded up with 1.34 mLs of oxygen. And generally what can put us in a state of hypoxemia is one of two things. Either our freight car numbers start to decrease, so in this case we go from 15 down to 10, or we have the normal 15, but we just simply don't load it up to its fullest capacity. Maybe we only load it up to 90% or 80% or 70%. And so in this example here, what's clearly happened is simply that the number of freight cars has been reduced, let's say, from 15 down to 10. But again, each one is nearly being fully saturated. Again, 98% saturation of this 1.34. The 1.34 would be the full capacity again, would be the full capacity for that freight car, and essentially we're at 98% of that. So again, it's understanding these two different variables that we're dealing with in this. And again, it's one of two things. Either do we have enough freight cars to begin with, and if so, are they being fully loaded to their full extent with close to 1.34 mLs of oxygen? So, and the consequences when the hemoglobin concentration drops down to 10, as we see in this curve, we kind of have this downward shift, and overall, the important aspect is, despite the fact that we're near saturation on our oxyhemoglobin, again, overall our content is significantly lower. And lastly, what this will raise the question for anemia is, given the fact that we're near saturated on our oxyhemoglobin, given the fact that we're near 100%, the question then becomes, what effect will supplemental oxygen therapy have for a patient who's anemic? If you give them 100% O2, will that correct their anemia? Will it correct their hypoxemia? And the answer to that is no. And the reason why is we can see, first of all, their issue is that it's not that they're not saturated. Again, they're very close to being saturated. And if you put an anemic patient, let's say, on 100% O2, we know from the alveolar gas equation, we'll take them from 100 millimeters of mercury out to 663, which would be somewhere out here. But if we extend this curve out, we could just see that really the overall, we've hit the plateau. And we would certainly go from 98% saturation to 100% saturation. But you can see by the plateau of this curve, overall our content is not significantly going to change. So again, what anemic patients have, it's not simply an issue, whereas emphysema or airway resistance would be that their PaO2 is depressing. In this case, anemia, they have a normal PaO2. The hemoglobin that they do have is being saturated. But again, the problem is they just have significantly less hemoglobin in this case, in this specific example. So by definition, what that means is anemia is a disorder that would not be corrected with supplemental oxygen therapy, because again, they're actually sitting up here at the relative height of the plateau. What they need is something to get them up to a higher level of hemoglobin, and that might be, for example, recombinant erythropoietin. It could be blood transfusion, something along those lines, to get them up here to a normal curve. So they need to get up to a normal curve, but again, they simply being up here on the plateau, taking them to the right, just does not correct their low oxygen content. So then the opposite of this we'll talk about is polycythemia. So there are certain patients that have a blood disorder, and what happens in their case is they produce lots of red cells, and so their hemoglobin concentrations can go up significantly. And in this case, in this example, it's gone up to 20, and they get a normal value being 10. And so if we do these numbers, 1.34 times 20 times 98%, plus the dissolve, is we get 16.57 mLs of oxygen per deciliter of blood. So again, assuming sea level and a normal FiO2 of 21%, we come up on this curve, and so we see again they're up here somewhere about 25, 26 mLs of oxygen per deciliter of blood. In normal being ideal being about 20, so they're well above this. They're carrying a lot of oxygen, and so as it turns out, the reason why is they have a lot of hemoglobin. Each one of these hemoglobin can carry up to 1.34 mLs of oxygen, and based on the saturation, they're carrying close. They're close to carrying specifically that amount, not 100% of it, but again almost with 98%. So similarly, again, what they do is they kind of jump up to this higher curve. For the most part, they're kind of out here on a plateau, which means that they're near saturated. And in one sense, if you were to give them supplemental oxygen therapy, not that there's any value to this, again, it would just indicate that you're not really going to increase them a whole lot more, not that they need to be increased anyways. Again, what I'm getting at here is that they're near saturation, they're pretty close to saturation. And again, supplemental oxygen therapy will get you from a point where your oxyhemoglobin is poorly saturated to a point where it's better saturated. And specifically, again, on a normal curve, if we were at 100 and we start falling down the curve, let's say down here to 60, PO2 of 40, supplemental oxygen therapy can kind of get you back up. But the one thing it can't do is move you from one of these curves to the next, and specifically getting you from anemia up here to a normal. So again, the problem that these patients have is in their case, is excess hemoglobin. Now, on the one hand, you would say, okay, it's a problem. They actually carry more oxygen. Is that a bad thing? And so for these patients, it is. So one of the consequences that they have is they have a very high viscosity of their blood because of the high hemoglobin concentration, really the high hematocrits that they have. They have a lot of red cells, so the viscosity becomes very high. They're prone for stroke. Also, because they have a large number of red cells, their spleen tries to eliminate them, and so they get splenomegaly and enlargement of the spleen. This will become very painful for them over time, and in some cases, the spleen may have to be taken out of the patients, or again, because of the enlargement and the possible rupturing of the spleen. Also, again, their disease is set up by a mutation in their bone marrow that's causing. It's producing an excess number of red cells, and the issue with these patients over the long term is there's a tendency for those cells to transform to a malignant phenotype and essentially develop an AML leukemia. So these patients, again, despite the fact that they're carrying high oxygen content, and you ask, is that problematic? Unfortunately, it's for a number of different reasons. Again, both in terms of cardiovascular effects and as well as hematological effects, is developing a high propensity to develop AML. And what's interesting is in athletics, and we'll talk a little bit about this as far as an exercise, to some extent what athletes want to do, the Lance Armstrongs of the world, is they kind of want to get their content up higher. Again, normal content would be about 20 mLs of oxygen per deciliter of blood. They actually want to get up to these higher levels, but unlike polycythemia, they don't want to stay up there forever. They want to transiently get up there while they're competing and then kind of come back down after that. So everything about blood doping and APO is all about getting this content above 20 and getting it to a higher level, because by doing that, once we get into the next couple of slides about delivery, we'll understand why it's important to be able to deliver oxygen to the tissues as metabolic demand goes up. So what this slide then shows is a different aspect of how the content equation is going to change. And specifically, this is in the case of carbon monoxide poisoning. And so we've seen this graph before. And specifically, what carbon monoxide does, as we said, what it's doing, it does not lower the PaO2. So again, someone with carbon monoxide poisoning, they're breathing in normally, they have no compliance issues, they have no resistance issues, they have a PaO2 of 100, but again, the carbon monoxide is binding the oxygen binding site. As a consequence of binding the oxygen, it's displacing the oxygen. So in this example here, they've gone from, let's say, 98 or 100% saturation down to about 50%. So when we now plug this in to the equation, so this is the variable that's changing on the carbon monoxide poisoning, it's the percent saturation. And in the previous example with anemia, it was the hemoglobin concentration that was changing. And again, the point of this exercise is to understand how these different variables can change in certain types of disease. So now it's 1.34 times 15 times 0.5 gives rise to 10.05. Plus our 0.31, again, this would stay under normal condition to dissolve. So overall now a content of 10.36 mLs of oxygen per deciliter of blood. Again, normal needs to be about 20. We can drop down to about 18 where some type of intervention should kick in. Certainly being down to 10 is going to be problematic. And again, the issue specifically with these patients, again, is what's happened for them. It's the saturation component that has been depressed now, again, through the binding of carbon monoxide. So in carbon monoxide poisoning, overall it lowers oxyhemoglobin content by decreasing the saturation, the oxyhemoglobin saturation, not by decreasing the hemoglobin concentration. And then this then gets us to one of the questions is how do we treat carbon monoxide poisoning? And so a classic measurement is to put someone in a hyperbaric chamber. So while, as we just talked about, again, overall what we see is because the affinity of carbon monoxide to bind hemoglobin, again, it's going to displace the oxygen, it's going to lower the saturation, and it's going to depress the oxyhemoglobin content. So again, as we mentioned previously as well, that carbon monoxide can be lethal. If the concentrations are high enough, the exposure is long enough, it will kill people. But for those who sense that they're being poisoned and they can get into an emergency room or get in for treatment, so one of the things that's done is they're put into a hyperbaric chamber. And the point of this is to increase the relative pressure, the atmospheric pressure in a hyperbaric chamber, and essentially to increase the dissolved O2 content, again, via increases in atmospheric pressure. So what typically can happen for these patients is they can be put into a hyperbaric chamber. In this case, as we know, the PaO2 normally arterial should be about 100 millimeters of mercury. But if you go through and you take them up, for example, up to 3 atmospheres, which is 760 times 3, at that type of pressure, what you're talking about then is a soluble oxygen concentration of PaO2 of about 2183. And so, again, oxygen always has this poor solubility. This is a constant that never changes. But as it turns out, we can, with this very poor solubility, by increasing the atmospheric pressure and putting them in any hyperbaric chamber, increasing the overall pressure, again, let's say 760 times 3, we'd have to subtract away our water, we'd have to, from the alveolar gas equation, we'd have to consider our CO2, but essentially we're going to end up with a PaO2 well over 2,000 millimeters of mercury. And so if we say 2183, times the solubility, it's going to give rise to 6.77. And this is significantly higher than the 0.3 number that we usually see here under normal conditions. So we've gone up quite a bit. So now if we take our relatively low hemoglobin, add it to a pretty high dissolve, we're at 16.82. Again, this is certainly lower than our 18, but this is enough to sustain someone while they're in the process of going through this now reversible reaction to get the carbon monoxide off the hemoglobin. And so what we need to be able to do then is this therapy can buy time for these people, again, until they can start to free up their oxyhemoglobin. And again, considering that the patient is going to be lying down, that overall their oxygen demand is going to be relatively minimal. And they're certainly not going to be running and running on a treadmill inside the hyperbaric chamber. But by minimizing their oxygen consumption, lying down, again, really minimizing overall the usage of oxygen. These amounts are certainly enough to sustain them, again, until they can get to a point of getting the saturation back up and, again, bringing the content. But, again, the important thing then here with carbon monoxide is the effect that it's doing specifically, it's decreasing oxyhemoglobin saturation, and then the therapy for that in the face of a relatively low saturation is to combat that with increasing the PaO2 through hyperbaric therapy, again, getting dissolved numbers up to a significantly higher amount to overall get the total amount of oxygen to something, again, that can sustain someone, and they're not going to be heavily active, but enough to sustain them and keep them alive, again, until they can start to reverse the poisoning from the carbon monoxide. And so, again, the summary of the key points, again, understanding that the content is always soluble plus oxyhemoglobin, understanding how hemoglobin concentration could affect the content. Specifically, anemia will decrease the content, polycythemia will increase it. Indicated here, polycythemia increases has increased hemoglobin concentrations, while anemia has decreased. Again, what you're going to see then is increases in your oxygen content and decreases in your oxygen content, respectively. Carbon monoxide poisoning, again, decreases the overall content, be a decreased hemoglobin saturation, not a decrease in hemoglobin concentration, and again, certainly not a decrease in the PaO2. The PaO2 is still normal. It can be normal at 100. Hemoglobin concentration is normal, but overall it's a saturation component that's being minimized in the content equation. And again, effective therapy for carbon monoxide poisoning is to significantly increase the soluble. And again, by driving that up, you can get that up where we can sustain ourselves in the face of a relatively decreased oxyhemoglobin content.